Welcome into the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast presented by SeatGeek, a podcast dedicated to everything you need to know about the squad.
Backdoor cut! Reverse two-hand dunk for 41 points, Trey Murphy!
With style, Trey Murphy giving him the Oprah game. You get a bucket and you get a bucket.
With panache.
The New Orleans Pelicans Podcast starts right now.
Welcome to the Pelicans Podcast for this Monday, March 13th. I am here with the vivacious Jim Eichenhofer. I am the pretty normal Joe Cardosi. The podcast is presented by the excellent SeatGeek. Hey, man, we won one, and that was a huge win. And, we've talked about the roller coaster nature of our feelings before. I didn't walk into, if I'm going to be honest, I didn't walk into the Smoothie King Center yesterday feeling all that great or confident.
Yes, because Saturday was very discouraging. I thought that was the kind of game that makes you kind of take a little bit of a step back and say, where is the season headed? I mean, Oklahoma City was very impressive. They made the Pelicans not look very good.
Yeah.
They were a step ahead on a lot of plays. They were quicker. They got so many better shots than the Pelicans did. But man, huge to bounce back against Portland the way that they did.
Yes.
And not only get that win, I mean, as I often say, would have been happy to win that game by 1 point, but they were up by somewhere close to $1 million in the third quarter.
Nice to relax.
It was incredible to be able to just kick back and say, hey, I think I can start writing the post-game recap because you're up. I believe the biggest lead was 36 maybe, something around there. I had to get my calculator out. So that was a very good thing. That it was funny. The final score, I think, was very misleading. It's not often that you say
a lot of garbage
you won by
time
17, but you really won by a heck of a lot more than that in terms of when the game was still in the balance.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've been on the other side of that too, scoring some garbage time points. But man, that was a huge one.
It really was.
And when you saw it, it was sort of a roller coaster because after, as you said, the effort in that last game was brutal.
Mm-hmm.
That outcome was brutal, and then you say, okay, on to Portland. Not feeling great about it. BI's out. Oh, extra no. And then you hear, but Damian Lillard's out. A ray of sunshine. But they've beaten us without Damian Lillard before. But man, the hustle. It just seemed like when they stepped on the floor, their attitude was different straight from jump.
And the range of emotions that you just described that happened maybe an hour or two before the game is kind of the range of emotions I feel like we've had in this entire homestand. You come out and you get a great win against Dallas, then you come back and struggle against OKC, then you come back and play awesome against Portland. I think a lot of the players themselves publicly said after the game Saturday or Sunday that we were not pleased with the effort. They admitted it was not us. Willy Green said the same thing, that was not the way the Pelicans expect to play or the effort that they think that they're going to come out with on the court. So I think they were very motivated to do exactly the opposite of that on Sunday against Portland. And now they're 2-1 on the homestand, and I think things are looking much better. It's amazing how much one game, good or bad, can swing the emotions and the way that you feel about the big picture.
Yeah, look, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic in any way, but last night after that victory, it's like the sky cracked open and I was bathed in light. But it had a lot to do with Trey Murphy. Speaking of people we've been looking for to be consistent and come on, with BI out, you knew everyone's going to have to step up. And Trey Murphy's dad in the pregame talked about how he wanted 40. He called 40 in that game. TM3 did him one better, got a big 41. And, man, it's just great to see for his own confidence, that shot going 9 threes. I mean, that is bonkers.
I like the ambitious nature of his dad's requesting 40, considering his career high was 32.
Yeah, go for big air.
He wasn't saying 35, 36, just creep over that career high. Just totally zoom by it, and that's exactly what he did.
Hey, by the way, predict more scores, Trey Murphy's dad. Please, ask for more.
Yes. Kenneth Murphy the second, I believe, is his dad's name, with Trey being the third in the family. So, yeah, I thought just what Trey did is kind of putting it all together of just all of the elements of his game that the guy is a very unique offensive player from the standpoint of, and I wrote about this on Pelicans.com, cheap plug there.
Yeah, go to it.
The fact that he was in the dunk contest and was runner-up, one of the best dunkers in the NBA, and also has some of the deepest three-point shooting range of any player in the league. There's only a few guys, I think, I don't have the numbers on this, but I'm guessing that there's only a few guys, maybe Steph Curry, Damian Lillard, who've made more threes from, say, 28 to 30 feet than Trey has this season. He did that again in the Trailblazers game where he had a couple where he's a couple steps. He's not shooting with his toes on the line.
Yeah, it was absurd, some of those shots over the distance.
We don't have to worry about what happens with Herb Jones, unfortunately, where his toes on the line frequently.
Yeah.
Trey is leaving no doubt. There's not a lot of replay reviews of Trey Murphy's three-point attempts because he's significantly past.
No, some of them are like trick shots. It looks like a Dude Perfect episode or something on YouTube. The kid's got his confidence, and man, it looked good last night. Seeing CJ once again come on strong when you needed him. Of course, worried about that thumb. Every time I see him with the brace on, I'm reminded, he's not 100%. And honestly, Larry Nance didn't look 100%. He was out there, and I'm glad he went out there. I did love the tweet that he sent, though, where he said that him and Trey Murphy combined for 43 points. Trey Murphy, of course, scoring 41 of those, and Larry Nance scoring 2. But, man, just having him back was good, just to see him available again. And you got to hope that B.I. is going to be back once we see the Lakers on Tuesday.
Yes, indeed. And, unfortunately with Larry, he picked up 3 fouls and didn't play that many minutes. So hopefully by Tuesday he'll be in a situation where he can play more minutes. Yeah. They definitely need him to do that. The fact that Jaxson Hayes has been a factor lately has definitely helped kind of fill that void. But we all know how valuable Larry is to the team. So having him back on the court was big. We just hope that he can, be on there for more minutes next game and that he'll continue to look better physically. No,
absolutely. And another guy that we're happy to see on the court again is Josh Richardson. He missed a few games for personal reasons. He is back on the court with the team. And, he had a couple up and down sort of games. It seems like reacquainted after kind of starting off a little hot, it seemed like, when he came to the Pelicans. And you got to get a exclusive interview with the man himself. Good for him.
Yeah, once again, just what a great day for Josh Richardson. It was overdue. He's been here for a little while. It was great to catch up with him. Yeah, I got to speak with him in the locker room after the game. And, like you said, Trey was the story of last night.
Yeah,
but
everyone else knew it, too.
CJ also played really well against his former team, which I feel like he does that almost every time now. Yeah. And he's 4-1, by the way, against the Trailblazers since he left there, so that's a good number. But Josh came out and was maybe not the same prolific level as Trey, but he was out there shooting threes and making them, and his shot looked really good. He was off to a good start. Finished with 19 points. Yeah. Josh is an interesting guy. I think I crack up because I know people probably haven't gotten to know him too well yet because he's only been here a short amount of time and only given a few interviews, but you can tell from just listening to him, he's got a really fun personality. He's usually has a lot to say. Yeah. One of the recent games, after the game Wednesday, this was kind of funny, against the Mavericks, a bunch of reporters were in the locker room, and he looked over at us and some of the ball boys, and he said to the ball boys, hey, who do we play on Saturday? And everybody was like, OKC, and kind of surprised, how did he not know who the next game against? He's like, and he looks back and he's like, no, I'm not talking about the Pelicans. I'm talking about Arsenal, his big soccer team. So I'm sure people can tell from his Twitter account that he's a big soccer guy.
So he fits right in.
Yeah. I'm not a big soccer guy, so I had no idea what he was talking about when he was asking who they play against on Saturday. I never actually got the answer to that either of who they
every 4 years I'll tune into what appears the Olympics. I've heard of it, but that's about it.
Yeah, there's this World Cup thing that
I've heard of the World Cup too.
Right. Yeah. I don't even really know what the schedule is for soccer, but when I'm the same way when it comes up, if it's a few weeks beforehand, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. That's this year. Maybe I'll watch that when the U.S. plays against whoever and root for them.
Yeah.
And then I forget.
For that day, even though I don't know any of the players on the team. Go USA vaguely.
And then I forget about it until the next 2 years or whenever the next competition is. But anyways, spoke to Josh for a couple minutes after the game, after his great performance against Portland. And he starts talking about here in this clip the game that Trey had, just his impressions of what Trey Murphy was able to do. He's played against him a little bit, but not a ton. While with other teams,
it's obviously, an interesting perspective on this team. Yeah, not a lot of people can bring that to this Pelicans team.
Right. Then Josh talks about his own shooting game, and then finishes up here with his adjustment to the Pelicans, how he's getting more and more comfortable with being in the system, and also the very important element of learning the playbook. What was it like to just see what Trey was able to do tonight, just making every shot out there?
My goodness. I mean, when you see him shooting practice every day, you know, we play shooting games, and seeing him get hot there is one thing, but, like, you know, he gets it going in the game. It's not much the other team can do. You know, he's 6'9", shooting like that. Like, and if you close out, he's one of the best dunkers in the NBA. He's just in the dunk contest, so it's got to be pretty stressful.
You obviously played against him. I'm not sure how much you were like matched up against him when you were the Spurs or this season, but I mean, was he one of those guys that you guys knew even like as a rookie last year? You got to make sure that you're attached to him.
Yeah, he's what you call a hot guy. You know, you just gotta. You know, as soon as he catches it, you got to be right there because he knows going up, and he's a good shooter. So if you're not there, it's going to be trouble.
Yeah. Speaking of good shooting nights, I mean, you came out confident. It seemed like right from the beginning, making shots. I mean, what did you just kind of have the feeling tonight that this was going to be a good night for you as well, shooting the ball?
I mean, I'm usually a confident player. You know, I just been kind of trying to find my footing a little bit, but no, it's been good. You know, kind of settling in a little bit. So. You know, hopefully that's usually how I plan on playing going forward. You mentioned settling in. Obviously, you came here, you know, right around the trade deadline. It's not like you've been here that long. Do you feel like now that you've been here for, you know, a month or so, that it's easier for you to kind of get adjusted to the offense and just kind of fit in? I mean, yeah, for sure, because I actually kind of know what plays they call it now. So I can kind of figure out where I'm going to usually be in each play. That's probably my biggest thing right now is just figuring out, like, okay, where am I at on this play? Where am I going to, you know what I'm saying, be at? So it's just little stuff at this point. Is this the kind of game, I know when you came here, you knew that this team has a lot of talent, but I mean, is this the kind of game that makes you say, like, you know, that you guys can do something special? I mean, we for sure can. I knew that coming in, but, you know, I'm not going to get overexcited about, you know, this win, but, you know, it's definitely encouraging.
Oh, man. Great stuff from Josh Richardson. You know, we've talked about it, Jim. The first step to having your jersey hung in the rafters here in the Smoothie King Center, get a Jim exclusive. You know, that's step one.
Yeah, that's quite a checklist you have there. Yeah, no.
Yeah. That's step two, win some rings or something.
Right. Start some championships, maybe, you know, some multiple playoff appearances. That would be great.
Do you even get motivated to win a championship without a gym exclusive? I mean, do you even want to do it?
That's a good question. I might have to ask that in the next gym exclusive. You know, where does this rank on your priority list as far as what's key to you? So.
How dazzled are you on a scale of 1 to 100? I'm sure it would be off the scale. Hey, man, you know who's also been looking good as of late? And I've got to say, especially since I put the Ferb Jones sticker from @RetroPels in the podcast studio. Maybe it's an omen, but Mr. Herbert K. Jones, he's been looking good, man.
He really has. I think this last stretch has definitely been one of his best of the season. I mean, he was a force last night. And once again, when I looked at the stats, say during the first half or halftime, when you look at the page, you're like, if you didn't know if you just looked at the numbers, you'd be like, hey, he's having a decent game. Mm-hmm. But it's another case of you had to watch the way he was getting in the way of everything.
That dunk was so sweet.
Yes, that was great. That was one of his best dunks, I think, since he's been here. He was just getting in the way of like a lot of what Portland was trying to do offensively. He was the problem, the disruptive guy, the guy that was just gumming everything up for them. So whether it came out in stats on the stat sheet, I mean, a lot of times I look at steals with him, but he got a bunch of deflections. He also drew a charge on the very first play of the game, which doesn't get any more Herb than that. 12 seconds into the game, you have a charge drawn already.
Yeah.
And I also tweeted this after that play. I'd have to look again this morning, but he was in the top. He was tied for 6th in charges drawn, and then he had that one. So, I mean, he's in the top 10 very firmly. And I love the effect that has on the team, and that's one of the reasons why the guys love him. Is just he's able to, like you said, the dirty work. He's not afraid to put his body in the way and take a charge from somebody.
Why everyone loved Josh Hart. It's why the fans love Herb Jones. You know, I don't think a lot of casual fans of the NBA even know who Herb Jones is. You know, if you see a Herb Jones, that dunk highlight, by the way, if you see that on the internet, on Twitter especially, you'll see people, who is that? we know who he is because of his grit and his toughness. You see his teammates just absolutely showering him with love for that. It's just great to see how much they appreciate the work that Herb Jones does.
And I think they respect the fact that he is not at all about attention. If anything, he runs the other way. He's not one of those guys that wants to be in front of the camera. He would be totally cool if the entire job of the NBA player was to just show up and play basketball and then get to go home
he would
afterwards.
prefer that, yes.
Right. And scoring is kind of the same way with him. Like, he doesn't care if he scores 2 points and 0 points, whatever. He doesn't need to shoot. He's more than happy to see everybody else, get the offense and get the flashy stats and that kind of thing. So, and speaking of flashy stats, with the 41 points that Trey Murphy had last night, also spoke to Herb. In this clip, he starts out talking about just his reaction to the game that Trey had and how he's really not that, taken aback when Trey has a big offensive game, just because of all of the work that Trey puts into. We see him in the practice court. People might say, man, he's making 30-footers all the time, 35-footers. He practices that constantly. Yeah. So when I see him get on a roll from just inside half court, it's also not surprising to me either. Just because I've seen him do it so much and worked on it, and he'll make 8 in a row from like a couple steps inside the half court line. It's beautiful to see,
because how many times are they going to close him out that far back? Right. So that shot's going to be available to him, man. If he can make it consistently, it's just going to rain threes. And people who always talk about the spacing we need on the Pelicans, that's the Trey Murphy we need right here on the Pelicans.
Exactly. And after Herb talks about the awesome performance from Trey, he gets into kind of how important it was for the Pelicans to get off to a fast start after what happened against OKC on Saturday. And then he closes this clip discussing just the impact that Mr. Josh Richardson had and how important that was to getting this win against the Trailblazers.
It was fun, but it wasn't like super, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I kind of expected it. He always is in the gym working on his jumper, working on where he gets his shots from. He really works, super hard on figuring out, when to pick his spots in the offense, and I think he did an amazing job of that tonight.
How much of an emphasis was it for you guys to come out faster? It seemed like you guys were super disruptive in the first quarter defensively.
We talked about it yesterday and today about, the slow starts, not having energy, and not playing super hard the entire game. And I think, if we come out and set the tone defensively and setting the tone with our pace, I think it always kind of ends up good for us.
And Willy talked about, around this time last year is when he just started establishing himself in the rotation and getting that consistent playing time. Just what's it been like just seeing Trey? And just what's it been like just seeing his development, in a short period of time?
It's like a credit to his work, how he watches film, and just getting better each night. Not really, letting anything affect him, whether that's, not playing a ton of minutes. I'm sure when he thought he should be, playing a lot of minutes, but he just kept showing up to work, ready to work, and getting better each day, and it's starting to pay off for him.
Yeah, something else that stood out was just the way y'all reacted to him on the bench, especially after that big dunk. Just what do you think it's about him that just gets, a bunch of people in the locker room to rock with him the way y'all do?
Great dude, man. It's hard, not to like Trey. And you got a guy like that, he shows up, works super hard. You always super happy to see him succeed, especially, how he did tonight.
What did you think of the factor that Josh was really at both ends of the floor, but also defensively?
That's just him being who he is. It's not really, I kind of expected from a lot of the guys on the team because I know what we're capable of doing. And he just showed up, and did what he does night in, night out.
Man, another Herbert K. Jones Jim exclusive. It was really a Jim review, but I'm going to call it a Jim exclusive because we all know who he was focusing on. Jim, you take over a room. We all know that. And, man, it was great to see the Pelicans take over a game. I dare to say Todd Graffagnini seemed relaxed, jovial.
That's good to hear. I was going to ask you that, whether there was some concern creeping into the broadcast when the lead went from, say,
at
36 to 26.
No slippage.
22.
Got to keep scoring. But he was able to keep it afloat there. I gotta say, as that game started off, it just seemed right off the bat that they just had another gear they were kicking into, and at sometimes it was almost frustrating. Like, where's this Pelicans team been? But I'm just glad they're here now, and it's beautiful to see that they have another gear left. When I gotta say, it almost seemed like they were worn out. It almost seemed like we needed another break. But here they are, and man, if they keep playing like that with that sort of effort, good things happen, as evidenced by sort of across the board the stats for the Pelicans in that game.
Yeah, I mean, specific to the gear and the way they started, I mean, 42-25, they were up after the first quarter. We would have given a lot to have seen quarters like that recently because the first quarter has been the one that's been the biggest issue. Another gear in the third quarter, they won 35-19 and just totally blew the game open.
Yes.
They were up by 36 at the end of that period. But in terms of the team overall, though, they made 19 three-pointers and 40 attempts. That was a season high in makes. Obviously, Trey Murphy was 9 for 14, so that was about half of that nice night that they had.
Yeah.
They also had 35 assists, which is up there near the most they've had all season.
The ball was moving last night.
Yeah, it helps to make shots. That definitely helps the assists because you can have the best pass ever.
Yes.
And if the guy doesn't make the shot, you don't get like a half an assist or
That's been a problem
quarter
for
of an
us.
assist. There's no beauty to the assist. There's no like someone
finesse
judging
points.
Right. So you have to make the basket. That's the key of the assist. But I mean, just overall, it was such a great performance. Another thing too, they finished with 15 turnovers, but they only had 5 in the first half. So some of those turnovers, the game was pretty much out of reach.
Yeah.
That happens a lot. You get into garbage time and it gets a little sloppy sometimes.
Yeah.
People start playing a little bit more loose. It's kind of like when you play pickup with your buddies and everyone's tired and they just kind of start throwing the ball all over the place and into the stands and joking around. So just across the board, I mean, shot 50% from the field as well. Like you name the category and they did a great job.
It was so nice just to see shots falling. And it was like, man, is this how it feels? Is this the Pelicans we could have? When you see that coming, and we talked about it again. With Zion potentially coming back, with Bi hopefully coming back soon. Other teams are banged up. Luka once again is looking like he's going to miss some time. Kyrie is banged up himself. Everybody is dealing with some injuries right now, and if the Pelicans can play that way with that much effort across the board, and then you've got your stars back. Again, I don't know that anyone wants to see the Pelicans.
Yeah, and I think in this homestand, obviously we talked about the OKC game that was rough, but the first 3 quarters of the Dallas game I thought were very encouraging as far as what can this team do, what can they put together. BI was hurt during that game, so they didn't have him for most of that. So if you're talking about the group of players that they have available for sure on Tuesday night and going forward, it's definitely a good sign that they were able to, pummel Portland the way that they did and that they played really well against Dallas, which is a pretty decent team for most of that game as well. Yeah. So just got to be more consistent with it. I do think, too, that what happened Sunday, realistically, to win a game by that much and to be up by 39, I saw was the biggest lead on the stat sheet. You need a little bit of cooperation from the other team as well to not play well. Yeah. I mean, there's some of these teams in the NBA or in the West are so good that even if you play that well, you're probably not going to win by a million points.
Yeah.
But I mean, if the Pelicans, setting aside whatever the other teams do against them, if they play like that, they do have a good chance, I think, in these last 14 games to maybe move up a little bit and win a bunch more and maybe put themselves in a lot better position.
Yeah, because you look at this stretch coming up, and we've been talking about how important every game is. Well, we're down 2 of them, and then last home game before we go on the road. I can't even say their name. They lost one, actually, which was fun to see against those Knicks. And so, man, the Lakers are up next, and that's another team that's sitting on top of us that you hope to put in their place. And then we're on the road for what looks like a juicy stretch, and that's where I hope we can move up the standings a little bit.
Sure. I mean, the Lakers game is huge. I mean, for a bunch of reasons we've talked about all season, including the draft pick status.
Yeah.
One thing, I don't want to get too complicated with this specifically to the Lakers, but I know I'm going to confuse people, and I know I'm going to confuse people tomorrow on Tuesday when
get ready,
write about this.
Yep.
But
you can trust Jim. He's
okay, thanks, Joe.
All right, yeah. So people trust him.
So the Pelicans, if they win, they even the series 2-2. They will have the tiebreaker if both teams finish with the same record at the end of the season.
Right.
Can I end it there without getting into the
so keep
details?
That.
So just trust me. Trust me on this one.
Yeah.
there's going to be people that say, like, how is that possible? The conference records are different, like, et cetera, et cetera. Just trust me. If the Pelicans win against the Lakers, they will have the tiebreaker, even though the series is 2-2. I will get into more detail on Pelicans.com.
Trust the man.
You can read why that is, but for our purposes here, let's just leave it at that.
And look, for those of our listeners that can read, we loved when you check out 5 Things to Know from Jim Eichenhofer, because it's always juicy intel. Speaking of those 5 things to know, you go through a lot of stuff, a lot of keys that people may need to know in this, as it is an off day today. And, what do you want to tell the people that they should know? Because people, hey, here's what I know about people. They need to know things.
They certainly do, and I'm glad they do, because that makes my job a lot more important. If they didn't need to know things...
You're a purveyor of knowledge.
Yes. But, yeah, in Monday's 5 Things to Know, and I don't know how deep I want to get into the details of this either, because people can go to it and read, but the last item on Monday's 5 Things to Know, I kind of explain why. I'm sure there's people out there that are saying, okay, there's a 4-way tie right now between Utah, the Lakers, OKC, New Orleans. They all have the same record of 33 and 35. How come in all of the standings I look at, why are the Pelicans listed as 12th? There's the very last team of that group. And the short answer is, which I explained in 5 Things to Know, is you take the 4 teams, you add up their records against each other, and the Pelicans actually have the worst combined record. But a big part of that is because Utah, they went 0-3 against. Utah plays Monday night, which means that Utah can't be tied with these other teams, because if they win or lose, they'll move ahead or behind. That helps the Pelicans. Yeah. So long story short, the Pelicans will go into the game against the Lakers in 10th or 11th. They're 12th right now, but they will move up either 1 or 2 spots no matter what happens. So a little bit better position. But again, maybe I went too far in the details.
No, I think that makes sense, because a lot of people are like, hey, why are we down there? I bet it was determined by a Plinko ball that someone from Atlanta dropped.
Right, or someone in like national media was like, I don't like the Pelicans. Let's put them in the last spot.
I think they deserve, 12th. That looks good to me.
Right.
So no, it is not that nefarious. There is a process, and Jim has the deep knowledge. So man, we are on to those Lakers, and who knows, man? I never know what to expect with that team. Sometimes you seem to get their best punch, and they've got a little extra fire for us, and sometimes they look like the Lakers I expect them to be, flat.
And by the way, before I forget, you mentioned Josh Hart earlier. Yeah. Shout out to Josh Hart, because the Knicks are up by 2 with 5 seconds left. The Lakers foul Josh Hart. He goes to the free throw line for 2 free throws.
Yeah.
He makes the first. The Lakers call timeout to try to ice him. Come on, you're not going to ice Josh Hart.
Nope, got ice in his veins,
in the building that he used to play with you for the Lakers, that he's played a million. That's not going to happen. What are you thinking? You should have just saved the timeout and saved everyone a bunch of extra time. Yep. But anyways, shout out to Josh for making those free throws and handing the Lakers a loss. Mm-hmm. But no, you're right with the Lakers. I mean, they've played really well lately, much to our chagrin before that loss against the Knicks. They've definitely been on the uptick lately. I don't know what to expect from them either, like you said. The one thing I do know for sure about Tuesday, and I can make this prediction, is that it's going to be packed in the arena. There's going to be hardly any empty seats. People are going to be as intense, or maybe even more intense than you and I are when discussing the Lakers.
Yeah, because I get to talk if I get too intense at work. But you better be fully lubricated and ready to roll, people, because we want to terrorize the Lakers as they are on our floor. And then we're on to that juicy stretch. You got the Rockets twice. You got the Spurs. You got the Hornets. Fresh meat is what I am hoping that they are. And here we go, man. It's the home stretch. And you know what? Once again, I feel good. I feel hopeful.
I feel good as well. I mean, if you get this win against the Lakers, we talked about these sets of games. You finish 3-1 on the homestand, that's great. You go into this stretch that you just mentioned as far as the opponents that are struggling coming up after that. I think that if they can beat the Lakers on Tuesday, it could be a huge springboard to the rest of the season, not just standings-wise, but also just confidence-wise. If they can get this win, we hope to see Brandon Ingram back, but if he's not available the way that they've played in, as I mentioned, 2 of the last 3 games. You want to see how they played against the Mavericks and the Trailblazers, not necessarily what they looked at like against the Thunder, but I mean, we don't need to spend hardly any time convincing any fan of the importance of this game or why they should be motivated for it. I mean, it's almost self-explanatory. Even And it's funny too to think that they have exactly the same record. Like we need any more reason to be like, yeah, this game is important.
It's like a Rocky movie when they knock each other out. It's just so dramatic. There's just so much drama to this game. And man, so gird your loins, gird them, because it's going to be a fun ride. And then, to your point, talking about the confidence of this team, if you win against the Lakers, then you go on that road stretch and you win those games that you should. Then it gets tougher. Then you're seeing, the Nuggets, and you got to face the Warriors, got to face Portland again. Then you look at that on paper and you're like, ugh, that's a rough stretch. But then if you start winning some of these games, it doesn't look that scary on paper. The whole attitude changes about those quote unquote tough games at the end of this month.
Yeah, and I think people can just see. I mean, maybe I'll speak for myself, but I would think that a lot of people feel this way as well. After the first 3 games on this homestand, I think you can see a clear pathway to they could be in good position or much better position than they are about a week from now. Next Friday, about 10, 11 days from now, they will head out to L.A. to start that road trip.
Yeah.
So as I keep saying, what position will they be in at that point when they go to California to play the Clippers and start that, as you say, challenging road trip?
Yeah.
I think if they can get a bunch of wins here, they're going to be in so much better shape. It's too long of a process to even go through the whole West standings and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But just suffice to say that if they can win 3-4 of these next 5 games, they're going to jump a bunch of teams that are barely ahead of them. We didn't even get into like Dallas and Minnesota are barely in front of the Pelicans.
It's so mucky right now and it's so bunched up. And we've been talking about how bunched up the West is. That's still the case.
And the teams that are like in 9 through 12 is the priority right now for the Pelicans. But I mean, you win multiple games, and I can almost sit here and guarantee you that if you win a few games in a row here, all of a sudden you're not going to be in 12th, 10th, 11th. You might be up 7th or 8th. So imagine how much better we'll feel if that gets to be the point, because as we've said, 7th or 8th is so much better than 9th or 10th from a play-in tournament standpoint and your chances of surviving to the playoffs.
Yeah. Next game is going to be a doozy. I'm just going to start getting ready now, doing push-ups and listening to some metal music and just doing pull-ups. Same stuff you do every morning, Jim, just to get ready for the day.
Absolutely. People would be shocked to know how much of a metalhead I am. So
yeah.
And it actually happened before I even met you. So it wasn't even just your influence, Joe. It was just we just naturally came together as 2 huge metal fans.
Yep.
That you probably wouldn't expect, but
yep. No, I walked in and I was putting some stuff in my office, and Jim saw my Twisted Sister tattoo, and then he lifted his shirt and he had the same one, and I knew that it was going to be a fun podcast. Jim, man, it feels good to talk to you after a win, and let's roll, man. We're going to do it again on Wednesday with Aaron Hardigan. Woo!
Cannot wait for that. I love the enthusiasm that she always brings to the table. By the way, I was not expecting a Twisted Sister reference on the show today, but that's why this is so much fun.
Put that on your bingo board.
There you go.
For the Pelicans podcast. It's an extensive one if you listen. But yeah, Wednesday, Aaron Hardigan of Bally Sports. So excited to have her on here as she is in town for this stretch. And she's out partying somewhere. So let's hope she's all right and down to clown with us too on Wednesday. Hey, that is Mr. Jim Eichenhofer. I am Joe Cardosi. And until Wednesday, go!
Thanks for listening to the New Orleans Pelicans podcast, presented by SeatGeek. Join us 3 times per week on Pelicans.com, the Pelicans mobile app, or you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. We'll see you next time right here on the New Orleans Pelicans podcast, presented by SeatGeek.